completely tone deaf to wear a designer outfit that collectively was worth tens of thousands of dollars when you take her watch and the jewellery into account, to a women's homeless shelter. Not the right place. Literally,
What
read
should
the
she have
room,
worn?
Meghan. Do what Princess Kate would wear. Wear an outfit you've worn before, probably from the high street, which means an inexpensive brand. Wear a pair of trainers. Just look look like you're not trying to show off. Like, it was a beautiful outfit, and the dress was an Australian designer, which is nice, but I do find it a little bit sick, not just that she wore such inappropriate clothes, but that she was profiting off it through this site. Did the women know that she was using this whole visit as a way of promoting her?
Well, I think it's unfair to say she was using the visit to the homeless shelter to promote her.
Well, she was, clearly.
In the sense that she would be using every public appearance to promote her fashion label. So it's not like
a charity visit, maybe like to the children's hospital or to a shelter.
Some things are sacred.
Yeah.
But how does it work logistically, right? So she would have had functions either side of the homeless shelter. So are you saying she has to dress nice for one engagement, then she has to quickly dress down so she doesn't,
Yes.
Isn't that a bit condescending to those at the homeless shelter? No one complained about what she was wearing. They were thrilled that she visited.
How do you know? Have you spoken to all the people at the women's shelter?
I was actually no, because I read the reports, and they said that they complimented her on how beautiful she looked.
What are they going to say? No one's going to say anything. And she did look beautiful. I'm not saying she didn't. And she dresses beautifully. That's not my point. I think it was inappropriate.
Welcome back to our channel. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video so we can continue having these important conversations together. And to our returning viewers, your continued support truly means everything. It helps this platform grow and allows us to explore discussions that many mainstream spaces often overlook or simplify. Today we are looking at a topic that has been circulating widely online and has sparked strong reactions across social media platforms and commentary spaces. It involves a Sky News Australia discussion in which a royal expert reportedly suggested that Duchess Meghan should be more like Kate in terms of fashion and public presentation. Now, whenever a statement like that enters public conversation, it tends to trigger immediate reactions from different sides of the audience. Some people see it as harmless commentary about style, while others view it as part of a much larger pattern of comparison that has followed Meghan Sussex for years. And that is exactly where this conversation becomes important. Because this is no longer just about fashion. It is about how public figures are framed, how narratives are repeated, and how comparison becomes a default lens through which individuality is interpreted. And once you start paying attention to it, you begin to notice how often it appears. Meghan Sussex's fashion choices are frequently discussed in media coverage, but what many viewers have pointed out is that the discussion rarely stays focused on her alone. Instead, it often shifts into comparison with other public figures, and that comparison changes the direction of the conversation entirely. It moves away from observation and into evaluation. It moves away from individuality and into contrast. And over time, that shift begins to shape how audiences interpret what they are seeing. Now, before going deeper, it is important to understand what makes Meghan's fashion identity so consistently discussed in the first place. Meghan Sussex has developed a style that is widely recognised for its modern, clean and minimalist aesthetic. Her wardrobe choices often reflect simplicity in structure, neutral or soft tones, and tailored silhouettes that emphasise elegance without excess. This approach has made her style easily identifiable across different appearances, whether formal or casual. And because of that consistency, her fashion naturally attracts attention. But attention alone is not the issue. The issue arises in how that attention is framed. Because instead of discussing her style as a standalone identity, commentary often introduces comparison points. And once comparison is introduced, it becomes the dominant frame through which everything else is interpreted. This is something that audiences are becoming increasingly aware of. People are no longer just consuming headlines or commentary passively. They are actively analysing how narratives are constructed. They are noticing patterns in language and framing. And they are questioning whether those patterns are intentional, habitual, or simply outdated. One of the key concerns raised in this discussion is the repeated suggestion that Meghan should adjust her fashion choices to align more closely with someone else's style direction. On the surface, that might appear like simple fashion advice, but when placed within the broader context of media commentary, it begins to carry a different implication. It suggests that there is a preferred standard. It suggests that deviation from that standard requires correction. And it suggests that individuality must be measured against comparison. And that is where many viewers are expressing disagreement. Because fashion, by its very nature, is personal expression. It reflects identity, personality, and cultural influence. It is not designed to operate as a ranking system where one approach is positioned above another. Yet in repeated media discussions, that is often how it is framed. Meghan's fashion is described not just in terms of what she wears, but how it differs from others, how it aligns or does not align, and how it measures against perceived expectations. And over time, that kind of framing builds a narrative structure that audiences begin to recognize. It becomes predictable. And when narratives become predictable, audiences start questioning them more critically. That is exactly what is happening here. Many viewers are now asking why Meghan's style cannot simply be discussed independently. Why does every analysis require comparison? Why is her identity so frequently positioned in contrast to someone else's? These are not emotional reactions. They are analytical observations about how discourse is structured. And they reflect a growing awareness of media framing techniques. Now, supporters of Meghan argue that her fashion identity stands strong precisely because it is consistent and authentic to her personal image. They highlight that her style choices often reflect modern simplicity combined with elegance, and that her approach resonates with many people who appreciate contemporary fashion aesthetics. They also point out that her fashion has been widely discussed and often positively received in international fashion spaces, where emphasis is placed on individuality and presentation rather than comparison. From this perspective, Meghan's style is not something that needs to be adjusted or aligned with external expectations. Instead, it is something that exists in its own right and should be evaluated on its own terms. However, critics of this view argue that public figures are always subject to comparison, especially when they exist within overlapping public spaces or cultural discussions. They suggest that comparison is a natural part of commentary and helps audiences understand differences in style, approach, and presentation. But even within that argument, there is often acknowledgement that there is a difference between occasional comparison for analysis and constant repetition of comparative framing. Because when comparison becomes the default lens, it stops being informative and starts becoming structural. It becomes the way every discussion is shaped, regardless of context. And that is where tension emerges. One of the most important aspects of this debate is how repetition influences perception. When audiences hear the same framing repeatedly, it creates familiarity. And familiarity can subtly influence how information is interpreted over time. This does not mean people are being told what to think directly. Instead, it means that repeated narrative structures can shape the boundaries of interpretation. This is why media framing is such a powerful tool, and it is also why audiences are becoming more critical of it. People are now actively questioning why certain comparisons are repeated, why certain narratives are emphasized, and why certain patterns persist even when they are widely debated. In the case of Meghan Sussex, this has led to increasing discussion about whether her fashion identity is being fairly represented in media commentary, or whether it is being consistently filtered through comparison. Because what many viewers are pointing out is that the focus often shifts away from her clothing itself and toward how it relates to someone else's style. And that shift changes the entire meaning of the conversation. Instead of appreciating fashion as expression, it becomes an exercise in contrast. Instead of analysing styles in alignment, and instead of focusing on individuality, it becomes focused on difference. This is why so many viewers are pushing back against that framing. They are not rejecting fashion commentary. They are rejecting repetitive comparison as the primary lens of discussion. At the same time, it is important to acknowledge that media commentary often reflects broader audience interest. Topics gain traction because people engage with them, share them, and respond to them. So in many cases, comparison persists because it generates discussion. But that does not necessarily mean it is the only way to discuss a topic. And that is the point many viewers are making. There are alternative ways to approach fashion commentary that do not rely on comparison. Style can be discussed in terms of design, influence, intention, and identity without needing to constantly reference another individual. And when those alternative approaches are used, the conversation often becomes more balanced and more focused. As we continue this discussion, it becomes clear that what is really being debated is not just fashion, but framing. It is about how stories are told. It is about how narratives are structured. And it is about whether audiences are comfortable with repeated patterns of comparison shaping those narratives. Meghan Sussex's fashion will continue to be discussed because she remains a visible public figure with a distinct style identity. That is not in question. What is being questioned is how that discussion is framed and whether it needs to rely so heavily on comparison in order to exist. And that is where the conversation becomes meaningful beyond fashion itself, because it touches on broader issues of media literacy, narrative control, and audience perception. So once again, thank you for watching and engaging with this discussion. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth commentary like this. And as always, we would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Meghan's fashion should be discussed independently, or is comparison an unavoidable part of media commentary? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, take care, stay informed, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.